Welcome back, everybody, to the A Little Less Fear podcast. Today, I would love to welcome Gabrielle Pimstone. After dedicating 27 years to organizational psychology, a podcast encounter sparked a life-altering shift. This prompted her to spend 18 months studying to become a level 3 energy master. Energy Mastery offers guidance on using energy to heal deep blocks. It's perfect for those with a spiritual inclination who are interested in activating their gifts and their energy to heal blocks from childhood, gestation, and previous generations. Her mission is to help people find joy and fulfillment in transformation, experiencing the rewards of self discovery, progress, and healing. I love this topic. Welcome, Gabrielle. So nice to meet you. You're all the way in Australia.
I am in the future. I
You're
am
in the future. I love it.
I'm 15 hours ahead of you. I can tell you what the future holds if you want.
Yeah. Oh,
No, I'm
please
kidding.
do. I'd love to know what does the future hold for Lino here?
Well,
15 hours from now. That's amazing.
well, I don't know. My world at the moment, I went to a TEDx talk. Firstly, thanks for having me.
Oh,
But
absolutely. Thank you for
it's
being
great
here.
to be here. I went to a TEDx talk last night for the first time. I don't know if you've ever been to one of those
I've never
events.
been to one of those events. How was it?
It's incredibly incredible. It was wild. What's so, from an energetic perspective, what is so interesting is that the way these TEDx, which is the local TED Talks, the way that they set up is all around a particular issue. Last night's issue was sustainability and net zero carbon emissions, which I'm quite interested in. And there are, I don't know, 10 speakers all talking about the same thing from a slightly different angle. And it really just pulls your focus into that topic. And it was beautiful. It was incredible. So I'm feeling really good. I'm feeling energized this morning. I woke up with a bit of a spring in my step.
Oh, I love that. So it pumped you up.
It pumped me up. It really did. It was quite an intimate audience. We're only about maybe 200 people, and we were like sitting in beanbag kind of chairs, and it was like being part of community because everyone was there with a similar passion, and it was
That's what
great.
makes it really powerful is that everybody's there with a similar passion, with a similar alignment. And with that
Exactly.
amount of energy going on with even a smaller crowd like that, it actually becomes more powerful. And
Correct.
everybody's able to interact and share. Whereas if it's a bigger crowd, it kind of gets a little more
Yeah.
difficult.
Yeah. Yeah.
The energy
Absolutely.
becomes a
Well,
little more dispersed versus,
dispersed.
yeah.
It was very condensed. It was great.
Wow,
It
that's
was great.
incredible. Well, thanks for
Yeah.
sharing.
So that's what the future holds.
That's what the
A
future
TEDx
holds. You
talk.
know what? Yeah, I would love to one day in the future go to a TEDx talk. I didn't know there were 10 speakers that you witnessed, huh? Wow, 10 speakers. That's a
Yeah.
lot. It's
Well,
quite a bit.
they've got different formats, but these were maybe about 9 speakers last night. Yeah, it was great. Short
And how long
formats.
was that? How long did it take to
It
this?
was about an hour and 45 minutes. They were short talks. And so the energy, kind of kept.
Yeah,
There was no time to feel restless or
sure.
switched off. You were onto the next talk, and it was great.
Well, onto this talk because I can assure people
Great.
this would be an excellent TED talk as well here with Gabrielle Pimstone. Gabrielle, I'm really interested. So why the shift from organizational psychology to energy mastery? But before you answer that, for people tuning in for the first time, what is organizational psychology?
Well, it's it's an offshoot of psychology. I guess I started studying clinical psychology and then moved into this midway. Basically, it's a discipline of psychology that focuses on health at work, mental health at work. And really, the way that what I've moved into over the years is the whole focus on human transformation. So, how do people lean into big change in their lives? And there's a meta process that people go through. And what I do is I help people, really find fulfillment in the process of change and learning and teach them how to change and learn in a sense. So that has been my world for all those decades. Now I'm doing it in the context of healing, which is very similar to change. I mean, it's the same psychological process. There's an unlearning process, there's a relearning, there's integration, there's all of that stuff. But I've kind of approached it from a slightly different angle, which has got a spiritual bent.
Thank you for that. And so when you were doing organizational psychology, I
Yeah.
can imagine that you felt, and I'm assuming here that you felt that there was something missing in this transformational change. Is that what led you to become an energy healer? I mean, how did the shift begin?
Yeah. I mean, not initially, like I thought I'd found my dream career. It was only once I grew out of my wounds and I grew out of some of my, the shadow aspects of myself that I started to see things in the corporate world that no longer resonated with me. So for 20, 25 years, I was actually okay with corporate politics. I could navigate my way around it. When I started really opening up and doing my own healing, it started to feel really toxic. That would be an example. Another one was, I was able to tolerate corporate bureaucracy for 25 years. And then when I started to want to make more of an impact, I realized, hey, this is holding me up. I can't make the kind of impact I want when everything has to go through layer upon layer upon layer of bureaucracy and red tape. So initially, I had a good 25 year, I had a great 25 years on the surface. And then I got to a point in my life where my own awakening led to some realizations that actually I'm not cut out for the corporate world. I'm too free of a spirit, and this is constraining me, and I need to leave. So it had been bubbling up for a while, but I found myself in a really dreadful job in 2020, and it had each job was getting worse and worse, and this one was just like I was at the bottom of the barrel. And psychologically, I'd withdrawn from the world. Didn't have enough energy to give people. Physically, my thyroid, my Graves' disease had come back. I've got a thyroid problem, which is interesting. It's also in my throat chakra area.
Yeah,
And it was overactive, which is really interesting because
that is.
my
Yeah.
voice was overactive as well for too long. And I was depressed and anxious. I was living in terrible fear. And I woke up on a Sunday morning and I had this pit in my stomach, and took myself off for a walk, put on my podcasts, and I listened to this woman talking about anxiety in her life. And there were 10 words she used. I think there were some. I always live my life waiting for the other shoe to fall. I don't know how many words that is, 10, 15 words.
Sure.
And when she said those words, I actually stopped in my tracks because I was thinking, that's me. I've lived this way ever since before my father passed away when I was a young kid. And it's time for a change. And suddenly the penny dropped. I resigned from my job the next day, started my own business, went to study energy for 18 months, and here I am talking to you.
Well, thank you for sharing that.
You're
Let's go
welcome.
back to the when you started to heal yourself before you
Yes.
went into before you figured out the bureaucracy, before you started to feel stuck in the corporate world. When you were doing the self-healing for yourself, was that a goal for you, or did you just fall into self-healing? And what do you mean by self-healing? What were you healing?
Well, I didn't, I just, what actually happened was I was healing uh, my core soul lesson and life wound, which was loss, grief, and crippling anxiety. Because when I was 5, my father was diagnosed with terminal cancer, and he, sick for about 4 or 5 years. He passed away when I was 9, and that was a really defining moment. And what the interesting part of my dad's journey, you'll be interested in this as a psychologist, is that he was a professor of medicine, and he never spoke about his illness. There must have been shame, there must have been all sorts of stuff around it. And
Mhm.
so my mother knew, but we lived in silence around it. And I'm hugely intuitive. So I picked up that something was happening. And I lived with this sense of impending doom. And that really charted the course for my life. So that's the stuff that I have been healing. And for a couple of decades, I did that in the context of, I had a therapist for many years. For decades, actually. And, she used a psychoanalytic approach to
Mhm.
helping me really work through that stuff. And what was interesting was I knew myself really well. I knew my triggers. I understood my inner world, but my life had not changed. I was still waking up with a sense of dread. And I was searching for a different modality, Lino. I just didn't know what it was. And I had a spiritual inclination since I was a young kid, but I'd shut it off. And I, chalked off the stuff to being really woo-woo. And so I'm searching for this new modality because the dial hasn't shifted in my life. And lo and behold, an advert came up on my Instagram feed. And it was an advert for a 3-day long weekend session workshop. It was like $10. And this person was talking about energy. And what he said made so much sense. He landed up becoming my teacher, by the way.
Oh,
But
that's
what he
amazing.
said, yeah, and what he said is that energy runs the show. Everything that you deal with on a psychological level, when we're dealing with our emotional turmoil, when we're dealing with our stories that we tell ourselves, identity, all of these things, traumatic events, all they are is actually, all that's left is energy. And when we are trapped in an ongoing cycle, as I was, a psychological, cycle of not being able to get out of it, actually, if you go to the inception point of that trauma and you clear it, the energetic inception point, that changes everything. And there was I think he spoke a lot more eloquently than I'm doing so now, because I signed up for a really expensive program. And it was right, it's true. So what was left from my dad's passing was the energy of sorrow, of loss, of fear, of, confusion. And when I was able to clear the energy around that, everything shifted. And so there was something compelling about that new modality. And that's why I got into it.
That's incredible. So,
Mm.
going into the inception point of that energy, what do you mean by that, the inception point?
Well, stuff starts somewhere. Okay. And so our traumas often start in childhood, and there's typically an event or a series of kind of micro events, but sometimes they even start in the womb. I've worked with somebody who had challenges in their relationships that were very emotionally, very needy, and people were just really repelled by them because there was a clinginess and like a neediness and a dependence about them. And when I worked with this person, what transpired was that they were not a planned pregnancy. So when they were in their mum's womb, that they were
Interesting.
the youngest of three. Yeah, their mum was shocked. She had an adjustment period. And that energy passed on. This was his core wound his whole life. So the inception point was in utero. It can also be handed down from generation to generation, generational trauma. So the inception point can be, your grandfather was in war and lived through, I'm just thinking of something on the spot, gave that something's particular, that developed something in him, passed down to your parent, passed down to you. And so the inception point is where it all began. And it's not just in linear time. It can happen actually
Sure,
at
ancestral.
any point.
Yeah,
Ancestral. Yeah.
anytime.
Any
But how
timeline.
does somebody become aware of that inception point?
Well, you got to work with an energy practitioner. So I don't imagine many people can work it out on their own, but what I've learned
Yeah.
is how to read energy. And I've developed my spiritual senses, my spiritual gifts, to the point where if I'm tuned in, I'm doing a reading, I can pick up that sometimes with absolute granularity, sometimes less granularity, but I can say to someone, this issue with, say, a person's got a money block, your grandmother or your grandfather, whatever, there was an incident, and I can get quite granular. Sometimes I can just say, the mother's line, there's something from your grandmother, I'm not quite sure. And then the person will say, actually, my grandparents were dirt poor, or whatever the case may be. So you've got to develop your spiritual gifts. You've got to be able to read energy and tune into that inner compass, that inner GPS system. And that comes in different shapes and forms. Intuition's one of them, but we've all got spiritual gifts as well. Things like clairaudience, clairvoyance. Some people are hands-on healers, so they're able to really feel energy with their hands and read energy through the palm of their hands. They can tell you what's going on. So the trick really is to develop and activate your spiritual gifts, because that's going to give you that that lens, your third eye, which is the part of you that can see beneath the obvious, that can see things that aren't in this particular dimension. And so that's the challenge, is to really go down that path. And I was shit scared
Yeah, I
to
can
open up
imagine.
my spiritual
Sure.
gifts.
And
But I did it
so
yeah.
and so everybody, since we're spirits or souls, however somebody wants to identify their unseen physicality, we are having this human experience. And so we all have these psychic,
We
intuitive,
do.
third eye gifts. How do you help people activate this and become aware of them?
So there are a couple of things. So if you work with me, I work with what's called sacred geometry, advanced sacred
Oh,
geometry.
yes.
Yes. And I've got a particular sequence that I use
Wow,
with
this is
using
amazing.
different sacred geometries. There's a sequence that actually helps activate someone's spiritual gifts. I actually did it for somebody yesterday. So if you work with somebody like myself, not, anyone who's got these gifts, they can do it for you. But if that's not your jam, what you can do is you can actually just build your own intuitive skills. And one way I always
Yes.
teach people to do is tap into your dreams.
Tap
Listen
into
to
your
that.
dreams to
Tap
tap into
into your
your
dreams.
intuition.
Yes,
What? Tell me more.
because what it is you are learning to listen to your inner voice. That's what dreaming is. It's your unconscious, and it's your inner voice that's talking to you, that's giving you
Oh,
insights
wow.
into what needs to be healed, etc., etc. So really what you're doing when you're dreaming is you are tapping into that inner voice in a way that is very mainstream. We all dream, right?
Right.
And we do crazy stuff in our dreams. In our dreams. If you didn't dream and I told you one of my dreams, you'd be sending me off for evaluation, right? So we've got that capacity, and what that does is it really opens up your awareness, your self-awareness, and really, that's what intuition is. It's the unthought known. There's nothing magical or mystical about it. What it is it's our brain drawing from everything that we've learned in the past, but what it's happening is we're bypassing the rational brain, so it feels a little bit more mystical.
Yeah,
So when you are dreaming, you are drawing from experiences in your past and across your timeline, and it's a really neat way to develop your intuitive capacity.
I love this. And I love how you have used your psychological background. I mean, Freud had dream analysis, and so did Carl Jung. And
Yeah.
so you're able to somewhat morph that into bringing it closer to your energetic aura, your energetic true energy by tapping into your intuition, because your dreams are your inner
Yes,
voice. And so
they
you're able
really
to
are.
mesh the both to help somebody come up with their intuitive nature. I guess their own inner dialogue. And so
Absolutely. Yeah. That's one way to do it. There are other ways, but that's one way.
let's get a little deeper here with dreams,
Okay.
because I'm
Okay.
fascinated by this. What
Okay.
about people that say they don't remember their dreams? I'll tell you, my dad is one of them. He says, I don't remember any of my dreams ever. And so, I mean, how can somebody start to remember the dreams, and how can they become aware? I mean, you know what I mean? I mean, it's a little
Yes.
confusing because I've had this
Yes.
discussion with him. And so I don't even know how to help somebody remember their dreams, or help them understand that they can dream and that they are dreaming every night.
They really are multiple times a night.
Yeah.
So part of it is discipline, practice. I think it's all boils down to that. And I personally follow Carlos Castanega's dream incubation process.
Dream
Okay. And it's
incubation.
been
What? How could you?
dream incubation process.
Okay.
And it's been practiced for, thousands of years in various cultures across different spiritual traditions. It's very Jungian, very, very Jungian. And what it is a structured way of making your dreams more intentional and remembering your dreams. So instead of leaving it to chance, there's the structured way to nurture your dreams. That's the best way that I can
Wow.
put it. And to give them space to emerge, to flourish, and to grow into something that we can speak to, because that's the ultimate goal. Is you want to get into your inner dialogue you spoke about,
Yeah.
a dialogue with your dreams. So there are different, I mean, there's in a nutshell, this is what you do. So you got to sit with a question. You got to let a question inside of you bubble to the surface. All right. You can
Let's
get
give an
into
example of this, Gabrielle. So you got to sit with a question. Let's say I'm about to go to sleep tonight, and I have a question for myself. What's next in my career venture goal?
great,
I mean,
great,
what's
great,
next for me? Because I can go multiple ways. I've got so many different goals, so many different passions. What's the next best
great.
alignment for me?
That's a great question, because that's a predictive question. And you can ask your dreams predictive questions, which is a
I
great one.
love this.
You can also ask your dreams like you can analyze things like,
Mhm.
why am I so irritable? Why am I so angry all the time? You can
Right.
ask yourself that kind of a dream. But what you've brought is what we call a predictive dream, and it's really cool. So, so that question's bubbled up,
Yes.
and you can, for other people, they may need to get into a calm or meditative state, but you seem to be very processed, so you know what's top of your mind. Once you've got that question, what you're going to do is you're going to consciously focus on the question just before you go to sleep. And to amplify the energy around it, you're going to do a ritual that is related to the question you're asking. Yeah. So a silly example might, so in your case, think of a ritual. Um, um, you could
For example,
maybe,
I have a ritual at night where I turn on incense and a candle every night.
beautiful. Beautiful. I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a very generic and beautiful ritual. Something more specific, like I've worked with people, for example, somebody who was trying to really bring about greater love into their life, specifically romantic love, and they got
Like a rose
a rose
quartz.
quartz. Yeah, they slept with
Yeah.
it under their bed. You can do
Okay.
that under their pillow. So something that's related to the topic. So what you're going to do is you're going to do that ritual, and then you're going to ask your dream the question. And the way that Carlos Castaneda teaches you, which is how I practice, is dream. Tonight as I sleep, help me understand why I'm struggling to find peace. Show me what life would be like if I took this career turn, which is the predictive, futuristic question that you had on your mind. And so
I
you're
love this.
asking the question in a heartfelt space, you're in a high vibration. You're doing a ritual that's amplifying the energy, and then you go to sleep. And you keep a little journal next to your bed, and when you wake up, you capture whatever comes up. Now, for your father, who would say, I don't remember my dreams, and a
Yeah.
lot of people say that,
Sure.
that's cool. All I say to people is, that's fine. Just when you wake up, all you need to do is document how you're feeling.
Hmm.
The felt sense is left after the dream. So just
Yes.
document that, right? And then, and you must do this for a minimum of 21 days, if not more. Get into the practice of doing it, and you will start to remember dreams.
Wow, Gabrielle, that's amazing.
Otherwise, come to me and I'll activate your dream. I've done it before. I've activated people's ability to remember their dreams.
This is really fascinating. I've never had a discussion like this, and it's really I
It is
love this stuff.
interesting.
I'm passionate about
So
all
do
this stuff.
I. Me
And
too. Me
so
too.
we could ask predictive questions. So in asking these predictive questions, or just any question in general, why am I like this, or why do I struggle with insecurities in this specific topic, or whatever the question is, or just predictive, where's my future 5 years, will I ever be married, whatever the question is, where are these answers coming from?
Your higher self.
Your
They're
higher
coming
self, which
from
is
your higher
universal
self.
consciousness, or how do you identify what higher self is?
Well, it's tapped into universal consciousness, but there's a version of you that exists that's got the answers. Okay, it's an elevated version of you that has solved the problems you're trying to challenge today. And that's what you're tapping into. Okay. So if I were talking psychologically, you're tapping into your unconscious. You've got so much knowledge and wisdom and things that you're just not tapped in. But I call it higher self-wisdom. So there is so much experience that we have and so much wisdom that we have from across our lifetimes, if you believe into that, that we've tapped into from universal wisdom, collective consciousness, all of
Yes.
that stuff.
Yes.
And that's what that's where it's coming from.
This is
That's
beautiful.
in my view, where it's coming from. My teacher would say something different. We differed in this regard.
Sure.
His version of dreaming and healing was different to mine. But that's what I have experienced myself. And your dream state is wanting to communicate with you. It's waiting
Wow.
to communicate with you.
I love
Yeah.
this, Gabrielle. So
Yeah.
your dream state is waiting to communicate with you, because your dream state is I mean, we can call it unconsciousness, but it's actually true consciousness. And
True
true
consciousness.
consciousness is alive, and that energy
That's
wants to
right.
tell you something.
Correct. Correct. You got it. I couldn't have said it any better,
You
honestly.
could. You're transmitting your energy to me, and I'm just translating. This is
Well,
you that
I think I'm just absorbing your energy.
Oh,
So
wow.
that, yeah,
Okay, so
it's
okay, here we go. Hang on. So I love this stuff. I just love it. So let's say hypothetically tonight, I'm like, dear higher consciousness, unconsciousness, higher self, universal consciousness, I'd like to tap into my dream world, because dreams, you have a way of showing me things and communicating to me through me, with messages and answers that I'm in my conscious human state, I'm not fully aware of. Please bring into my awareness this information. So let's say I wake up tomorrow morning and I get this vision of me on stage singing. I don't know what I'm singing, but I'm singing. And so I feel motivated. I feel on top of the world. What do I do now? Now that I have this image, now that I have this energetic pool, now that I have this newfound motivation, what am I supposed to do with that?
well, you're supposed to act on your insights from your dreams. You are. So, that's how I work. So whatever comes to me, I sit with it. And now I'm not working with all my dreams. I'm only working with really important ones because I dream a lot. And I take the one
I'm
thing.
sorry, come again. Did you say you're only working with important ones?
Yes, I wake
What?
up and I know if I've got to work with it. If it's a major dream, I know I've got to document it and I've got to work with it. Otherwise, I just let them go. Otherwise, I'd be documenting 5, 6 dreams every morning.
Well, how do you know the difference between a major dream and not a major dream?
I have a felt sense about it because I've been working with it for so long. So when I wake up in the morning, the felt sense is either I'm feeling um, very anxious, something's very off. They're usually not joyful dreams. They're usually tapping into my fears and all that good stuff. So I feel a heightened sense of discomfort. It's just, or I'll have just a nano flash, a nano flash. I can't put it in any other words, that I've got to put pen to paper. There's something important here. So that's part of,
Is it
my,
always a discomfort, or could it also be a comfort? Could it be a
it's,
realization of some sort? So I'm asking
it
this
could,
because there are
it
times where I
could.
have dreams and this dream follows me throughout the day. I'm thinking about it
Yes,
all day. I'm having
yes,
flashbacks of the
yes,
dream as if it really
yes,
happened yesterday.
yes. That's another way. So for me, my dreams are typically uncomfortable. I don't dream good things. I just don't. So it's usually that. But I once had a predictive dream. And it stayed with me for actually the whole day. And eventually I wrote it down. And I probably would have ignored it, but it stayed with me, you know? So there's that. There's just sometimes you just have as I said, like a nano, like a flash, like just an intuitive ping,
Nagging.
nag, or just something like I've woken up and I just know I've got to write. I've got to just write. And
Okay.
so then it comes out that way. But this is all, so there's like a continuum of dreaming. You know, there's people who say, I don't dream. Well, you do, to I don't remember my dreams, to I remember my dreams. Now, what do I do?
Yeah.
Okay. And then there's lucid dream. We can get into that later. But what do I do with my dreams? Well, you write it down. There's a moment of insight about yourself, and you work on that. That's the work. Then you either, if it's an emotional barrier, so you sit with it, that's what you work with for the next few weeks. If it's something you need to do, like, you know, if you feel it's a prophetic dream, you listen to the signs and signals and you start acting on them. But we don't dream just to release. I mean, that is cathartic, but we actually have to do something with our dreams, whether that's making sense of them or acting on them.
Okay.
Yeah,
Because all of our dreams are messages.
they're all messages. They are signs and they are signals to take action. Yeah.
Wow, dreams are signals to take action. What a quote that is. I love this.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, okay, let's hypothetically say dreams are signals to take action. I have a dream, or I had a dream last night. It's just hypothetical. I didn't, but let's just say that I had a dream last night that I'm in Africa and I'm being chased by elephants.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say I have a dream like that hypothetically. I wake up feeling a little scared, but at the same time puzzled. Why would I dream that I'm in Africa being chased by elephants? What does that have to do? I've never been in Africa. I've never
Mm-hmm.
even seen an elephant in my life. I mean, I have at a zoo, but I'm just saying, what does somebody do with information such as like that if they've never been exposed to such a massive animal mammal in their life, and how would they even know what that feels like? And in this case, I'm assuming that you take the feeling that's taken from that dream. I'm feeling like I'm being chased. This to me, this feels like anxious. I feel like I'm running from something. Is that, I mean, does someone just start to write down what these dreams are, the type of feelings it's invoking?
So you write down. Sequence is important in dreams. It's very important. Okay. It's a story that's unfolding. And so you write down the dream, everything you remember, down to the most
Okay.
granular level.
Okay.
So I walked into the kitchen and there was a blue tiled wall. You know, I'm just giving you,
Okay.
you know, and there were small tiles, you know,
Very
and
specific.
very specific, very specific.
Mm-hmm.
And then once you've got everything out on paper,
Mm-hmm.
then the inquiry starts. And sometimes the dream, when you're writing it out, part of the narrative is the felt sense as well. Okay. But if you
Okay.
haven't captured that, go back and you're
Okay.
looking for key things. Context is important. You spoke Africa. What does Africa represent? You know,
Right.
elephant. You know, what does an elephant represent to me? What does it evoke for me? What's the felt sense? Um, so you're looking for objects, people, context, like place,
Yes.
sequence,
Yes.
colors,
Yeah.
that blue eye,
Smells.
actually,
Yeah.
smells. You got to tap into your senses, all
Tap into
five
your senses.
senses, all of them. And that's how I work. And so, how did you feel when you were there? Was there a particular texture to that door that
Mm-hmm.
like, was it
Yeah.
big? Was it imposing? So you go into a very granular level of analysis. That's how I work. And then what I do is I start to join the dots. I kind of zoom out, and then it's all about, how does everything fit together? But the transition, because in dreams, we've got different scenes, and how you transition from one scene to another is also important. So we're looking for all those things as well. Little things. I remember having a dream, it wasn't so long ago, it was about a year ago. It was a very poignant dream. And I remember turning left. There was a fork in the road and I turned left.
That is
Divine
specific.
feminine. Divine feminine. There was some, and that, it was like the penny dropped, and I knew exactly which aspect of divine feminine I was needing to work on.
But how did you put that together? How is the left divine feminine?
Because the left side of us
Yes.
is the feminine side, the right side of us is the masculine side, energetically speaking.
Wow.
Yeah.
This is so awesome.
So it's gorgeous, and it's available. It's a tool that's available to all of us. But there are other ways that you can tap into your intuition. And we started speaking about dreams because of the question around intuition.
Yes.
You can do it physically. So the body, the human body, the energetic body as well, they use as language to communicate energy to us. So one of the things we can do is the body scan, daily body scans, to
Daily
go
body
from
scans.
top to bottom, and really getting in touch physically with what you are experiencing. You can train your thoughts, mental triggers. They give us access to our emotions. So you can ask your intuition a question. It doesn't have to be your dream. You can ask your intuition a question and then just journal what comes up and do free writing. Don't censor. I do a lot of free writing, and then carry on until you've got nothing left to write. So that's another tool that we have available to us. There are different ways that you can do it, but the fastest way is to have your gifts activated.
And when you talk about, thank you so much for sharing all this. I just love all
Such a
this notes
pleasure.
that I'm
My
taking, and you're
pleasure.
just really helping me and all bunch of listeners. And in doing so, I know that it's a gift of healing energy that you're giving in giving this information. So thank you so much for
Thank you.
for connecting with us in this way. I really appreciate you.
You're very, very welcome.
And so ask your intuition a question. I love how you said that. Ask your intuition a question, because once again, intuition is your higher consciousness.
Yeah.
And do free writing and carry on until you have nothing else to write. Now, once somebody is able to tap into, okay, let's go back to that one. Somebody asks a question and they're writing until they can no longer carry out a write, and they read back what they wrote, and they get some kind of idea of what's going on with them,
Mhm.
with them unawareingly, but now they're having some type of awareness. What do we do? What do
Yes.
they do with this awareness?
Well, I mean, as a psychologist, I would say, how do your clients, what do they do with awareness? They process new insights, they
Okay.
sit in new emotions,
Yes.
they continue to journal every day, they do things differently, they take different decisions. You know, that's how you that's what you do with new awareness. And depending on where you're at and what awareness has come through, sometimes it asks you to take action. Sometimes
Mhm.
it asks you to just sit in it and process some more and kind of do some more deep thinking and do some more writing and journaling. So, it's really about sitting with what comes up and sometimes acting, sometimes taking a different decision, making tweaks to your behaviors, little things like that.
Thank you.
Big
And
things like
And
that.
in activating, so you mentioned activating clients' gifts. How do you activate their gifts? How do you know it's a gift?
Well, what I do is the person will come to me, and I've actually got a few people at the moment who've asked for this, but they sense, like, for example, somebody I'm working with. I'll give you an example. Sometimes people got a sense, like they're clairvoyant or whatever, and they just don't know what to do with it.
Mhm.
Sometimes, like with this one client, and I know she won't mind me saying this, but she's had a buzzing in her ear for a long time. It's been over a year. And I know that that is a sign of clairaudience trying to, because
Tune
I had
in.
the same. Yeah, yeah. And so what you do is, I don't activate a spiritual gift unless somebody wants it to be activated.
Mhm.
So I use sacred geometry and I go through the sequence, and I don't I say whatever is in the highest good of all, whatever psychic sense or spiritual gift is ready to be activated, let that be released and activated now. So I don't go in and say, for example, with her, activate her clairaudience, because that might not be what's ready.
True.
There
True.
might be something else that's
Yeah, it might
ready.
just
So
be a
there's
signal.
always, it might be a signal. So whatever is in the highest good, that's the intention I set. And then I go through the sequence I don't know what I'm activating at the time. I don't necessarily. Sometimes I do, but often I don't. Okay. And then what we do is watch for signs, signals, different things happening. And then we work out afterwards what's been activated for them.
Can somebody, thank you for that. Can somebody do that on their own as well?
No, no, you
Okay.
you need to learn the tools, and you
The
need
tools of
to,
sacred geometry.
yes, and you need to have expanded your energetic capacity. You need to have gone through your own process
Yes.
before you do it, because these sacred geometries that I use are advanced. They house potent energy, and not everyone can use them. You've got to have expanded your energetic capacity. It's a graduated process. That's a huge part of what my teacher was doing for 18 months, so that by the time the lessons get more and more advanced, because your capacity to hold and house advanced potent energy is, not everyone can do it. Like if you started off doing, if I taught you, if I showed you what to do and you just did it on yourself and you hadn't the energy wasn't worked on, you'd implode. You'd
Sure.
feel
That makes
sick, you'd
sense.
feel nauseous, you'd feel dizzy, you would probably have a panic attack. So it's a graduated process, like anything.
Sure, like anything. I mean, you can't just say, I'm going to go run 26 miles tomorrow and then try it. You're going to be nauseous and sick and dehydrated and exhausted for the next week.
Good analogy. Great analogy. That's exactly it. Yeah.
So, Gabrielle, how can you tell us what sacred geometry is in the simplest way that you can describe it?
Well, in the simplest way, it's if you look around in nature, you see it everywhere. There are these divine, perfectly proportioned shapes and patterns that you see everywhere, like a snowflake is one of them. The center
Sure.
of a flower, it's not just
Yeah.
dots. It's like, it's
Or
actually quite
seashells or looking inside a conduit. Yeah.
seashells. Exact seashells in the human body. Our DNA, it's actually two octahedrons back to back, but we think of them as spirals. Our cells are spherical. So we've got divine patterns, and they're not there by
Coincidence,
coincidence,
right?
right? So nature, actually, it was Galileo that described sacred geometry as the universal language, nature's way of communicating love. It's
Wow.
just that, and they are very, very potent. Some of them are very simple, like a sphere is very simple, but
Yes.
some of them are very complex. There are geometries within geometries within geometries within. Think about, I don't know if anyone's listening that knows anything about sacred geometry, but like the Metatron's cube, which is one of the geometries that I work with, is a very complex, it's got multi-geometries. And so each of these houses a particular energetic frequency. This is the simplest way I can describe it,
Yes.
that allows you to do specific things with it. So there's geometry that's really useful to deal with forgiveness. There's geometry that's contains and houses universal, divine, unconditional love. So if someone's got relationship challenges or self-loathing, that would be a nice geometry to use with them. There are other geometries that allow you to clear and travel across someone's timeline and actually
Wow.
clear at that inception point. There are geometries that allow you to clear physical
Mhm.
symptoms, like I cleared my migraines as well. So they house particular frequency that can be used for specific healing. And so what you do when you're using it, and I'm not going to share exactly what you do, but basically you build the structure either with your hands or in your mind's eye. and then you use it so it's there, it's in the energetic field, and then you use it to do the healing. That's how it works. So with the activation, I'm using 6 different geometries, and I'm stacking them, and there's a sequence. So it's very powerful.
It sounds very powerful. And because the
Yeah.
sacred geometry, I mean, it's all mathematical because all geometry, I mean, they all have a
Divine ratios.
symmetry. That right, they're divine measures. Oh my
They
goodness, I
really
love
are.
this.
They really are.
And
They
that's
really are.
universal language.
It's the universal language. It really is. It's all over nature. Go and have a look in nature. You'll see these incredible patterns everywhere. As you say, even,
Yeah.
the seashells, it's like that is a spiral type of geometry. So it's actually the Fibonacci sequence.
Yeah, the
So,
Fibonacci, the three, six,
yeah,
nine sequence.
yeah. So, yeah, they are different. And it's very powerful. They're divine, they're sacred, and they are very potent energetic frequencies. And what they do, how geometries work, is they house, because we're pulling down when we're healing or activating, we're using divine frequency, we're pulling down higher frequency, and the geometries act almost like an adapter. So you don't have to house all the frequency, otherwise you'd probably implode. They kind of house it for you, and they channel the energy for you. So they act almost like an adapter, and that's how they protect you as a kind of a 3D human from these very potent, beautiful but potent energies. They act as a safeguard. They've also got divine intelligence. They know what to do. So when you're doing the healing and you're working with them, there's a intelligence and the wisdom that transcends us, that's also doing the work that I can't even see what it's doing, but I know it's doing some beautiful, powerful, incredible stuff.
So as you're talking about this, I'm thinking about mandalas, like mandalas. That's
Mandalas, yeah,
mandalas.
yeah,
Those are
yeah.
similar. Is that similar to? Is that sacred
It is
geometry?
it is a sacred geometry. It
Okay.
is. It's a multi-geometry. I've actually not used that. I've not been taught that, but
Mhm.
that is an example.
And
That is an
also,
example.
I'm thinking there are some orgones. You've seen orgones before, and they're shaped in a
No,
certain shape, and some of them in copper, where they're supposed to emit or omit a certain frequency to clear energy in a room. So I'm wondering if, I mean, it's all making sense to me because these are all patterns, and they're a specific looking
shapes.
type of pattern
Mm,
shape, correct?
yeah.
And this
I
is
don't know
just
what those
amazing.
are. Yeah, but there are lots of them. It's like, here's a simple one, a pyramid structure.
Yeah.
You see them in, Giza in Egypt. They've got sacred protective qualities, pyramids. So often, it's a very simple sacred geometry that I teach people to put an energetic shield around them if they're feeling like, for example, if they're going into a toxic work environment day in and day out. I teach them to build
Mhm.
a shield of a pyramid. Just imagine a pyramid around you. Close your eyes for a minute. You can do something with your hands, but just imagine a big, large pyramid all around you, and it's protecting you. Only energy of love and light can come in. Toxicity bounces off. You set that intention. Pyramids hold a sacred quality of security and safety. And so you can use them for energy protection.
And our ancestors knew this, which is why there's pyramids all over the world.
Thank you. They are everywhere, you know, ancient Egypt, Aztecs, everywhere. There's so much wisdom from these indigenous kind of
Oh, I know. It's so
it's
beautiful. I
just
love it.
it's so beautiful. And what's happening is now it's coming more and more into the modern lexicon. I mean, when I started yoga, for example, 30
Yeah.
years ago, it was no one I knew was doing it. Now everyone, it's like mainstream,
Sure.
right? And yoga is just, I mean, it's those poses. There's so many pyramids. And when I'm in a pyramid pose, I can feel it. It's just beautiful. So the world's waking up. The world's definitely waking up. And I think it's a great time to be alive
I
from that
love this.
perspective.
I love this. And so when a lot of people start to say that this is becoming a fad or it's becoming something
No.
that's in style or something, they tend to kind of twist something negative, but it's actually something beautiful because people are starting to wake up to it. And they may not
Yeah.
know the foundations or where it all comes from, where it all stems from, but it's opening a part of a certain awareness within them that's intriguing and that's opening up collectively. And that's what's going to help us
Correct.
all become a little bit more awake.
You're sounding very Jungian.
Oh, I love it. And and back
Yeah.
into the pyramid. So I do this every more about five days a week. I do this chakra alignment meditation,
Mm,
and five of the seven poses have the pyramid where my arms go up. And when
mm,
I do that and I look up, I mean, I feel like
mm.
I'm limitless at that point. And I
Yeah.
don't mean that in a hedonistic and an over omnipotent type way, but it just feels like I'm free. And in that
Yeah.
pyramid pose, I can look up at the sky and I feel that there's nothing else but me at that little
Mm,
moment, my little bubble. And it's sometimes
mm,
it's hard to balance, but when I get into that balance and I look up, it just feels really amazing.
mm.
I love
Sounds
it.
beautiful. I
Yeah.
love it too.
Wow, Gabrielle, this has been really amazing. I took so many notes here, and I'm
I'm
really just
glad.
really grateful. Thank you so much for all the information that you shared here on A Little Less for Your podcast and all the other podcasts, and just all with all your people and your clients. And I mean, you're definitely on the mission here to help people find what you said, fulfillment and joy in their transformation. And this is all self-discovery. This is all a process. And something else. Oh yes. So you were talking about, I want to go back to the very beginning of this interview, how you were talking about that when you started to heal your traumas, that's when you started to actually open yourself up to more. And I'm feeling from this now, this interview that all of that brought you to where you're at today. You needed to go through these little steps from psychology to, from corporate world to feeling like this wasn't enough anymore, to feeling stuck and are finally opening yourself up and now utilizing
Yeah.
your intuitive gifts, your spiritual
Yes.
gifts to help other people utilize and open up their gifts. And that's a domino effect that just keeps going on to the next person and the next person. You really are gifting the world. Thank you. Really
No,
appreciate
thank you.
this.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Yes, it was an evolution, and sometimes change is just that. It's an evolution. It doesn't have to be this big bang thing. And I've still kept a huge part of my old identity because I love psychology and I love human transformation. And I still work with the corporate world, but in a different guise. So there are different things that we can do. And I'm just honoring my evolution. So thank you. And thank you so much for having such a wonderful podcast and really allowing people to get their voices out and for people to hear things they might need to hear because a podcast changed my life. So thank you.
I love it, and you're welcome. Thank you. So we're gonna end this with I have a poem here that I wrote. So when you were talking about people doing their free writing, where ask your intuitive questions and free write. So my intuitive voice comes through writing. I started writing when I was like 5 years old, and I used to look back at my writing. I remember being a teenager and seeing stuff that I wrote when I was 5 and 6, and saying, "Where did this come from? How is a 5 year old
Yes.
how are you metaphorically able to do this at 5 years old?" All I can say is it comes from a higher consciousness. And so I
Yeah.
write pretty much every day or every other day. And so I tuned into your energy and with peace and love and for our highest good. That was my intention. And so I
Beautiful.
wrote this here for you. And so I'm going to end this with the poem here. All right. And this is for Gabrielle Pimstone.
Mm.
I welcomed this path, mind, thoughts, mind, body. But what were my feelings made of? Where were my feelings being stored? Upon questioning my energetic survival, I saw and met a forefront of infinite questions answered only within. I surrendered to what I thought I knew and delved into what my feelings were telling me. That's when I met my eternal graceful energy. And in that, I began to untangle the knots that had been tied years and generations ago. I now aim my bow to reach those in alignment with all there is, and in that we surrender to truth.
Mm.
And that's your energy. That's what I felt into. So thank you so much
Well,
for allowing me.
I've got tears in my eyes. Thank you so, so much. I really appreciate that.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for receiving it. I
I'm
appreciate
humbled. Thank you.
it. I love it, Gabrielle. Thank you. So how can our viewers you're awesome.
You
How
turn
can
off
our
the camera.
Oh, this is great. I love it. This is love. This is universal love connecting here.
Mm.
Thank you so much. How can our viewers, our watchers, and our listeners get a hold of you?
They can contact me either on LinkedIn or Instagram, or they can get onto my website. It's
Ooh, I love
generativegrowth.com.au.
that.
There's an AU because I live in Australia, generativegrowth.com.au. Get a sense of who I am, how I work, what I can offer. And you can hop onto one of those 30-minute vision calls. It's absolutely obligation free, and see if there's some support that I may be, be able to give you, because that's my mission. And yeah, so my website, LinkedIn, Instagram.
Beautiful. Gabrielle Pimstone, everyone here on A Little Less Fear podcast, energy master, offering guidance using energy to heal deep blocks. Thank you so much for integrating your life here with us, your beautiful energy, and I look forward to keeping in touch with you.
You too. Thank you so much, Lena.
You're welcome. Thank you.